Hello and welcome back to your mat. Today we're going to do a short practice. This one's going to focus on one pose with several variations. And this is great if you're on a time crunch, you don't have a lot of time, but you still want to have an effective practice. So we'll get started right away. No props are needed, just yourself and your mat. And we'll start with a quote by Elizabeth Barrett Browning. Like tomorrow with today. So we're going to start. So this class is going to be focusing on Pigeon, and if Pigeon doesn't work for you, I'm going to give you a variation for that, but we're going to work through variations of Pigeon. But to start, we're going to start just seated, simple cross-legged here. So I've got my left shin is in front of my right. Doesn't matter which one's in front, we're going to do the other side. Come to sit nice and tall, and then just simply fold forward any amount. So since this is the first pose of the day, more than likely, you may not fold very far. You might be more upright. Find what works for you. Keep your hips grounded into the mat. And you can sway a bit here if you want. We're just kind of warming up into the body before we move into our Pigeon and its variations. And again, you can come as far down as you want. So if you want to come out on your elbows, you can do that. You can stay more upright. Find what works for you, but try to keep those hips grounded into your mat. Take a nice inhale and exhale through your nose here. Come on up, release that, and then just switch the cross of your legs. And now we're going to fold forward again. So sit up nice and tall, and then fold forward any amount. So whatever feels good for you, you can sway to start with. And when you find yourself in a good spot, keeping the hips grounded, you can settle into the pose at whatever works for you. Again, if it's the first pose you've done today, you might want to stay more upright. You might be a bit tight, especially in the hip area here. So take a nice inhale and exhale through the nose. And release that and come all the way up. Okay, and so to get started, we're going to start in deer pose. So I'm going to bring my right foot, my right shin forward, and my back leg is going to go behind me. So everything's going to be a 90-degree angle here. This is it's also called a 90-90 sit, or it's called deer pose. So I will turn here just so you can see that from the front here. So this one is my front one. It's parallel to the front edge of my mat. I'm just turning so you can see this, and then the back one is behind me. So I got 90 degrees here in my legs and the knees and the ankles. So set yourself up, and you will be slightly off here. You're going to be kind of finding yourself tilted somewhat over to the right, and that's okay. So we're going to start here, and you can always adjust your legs a bit. They don't have to be exactly 90 degrees, so just find what's comfortable for you, what works for you. Sit up as best you can, as tall as you can, and then we're going to inhale, and then exhale, and we're going to fold over that front right leg any amount so you could stay more upright. You could come a little bit further. You could come all the way down. You decide what's going to work for you today in this pose. So we're going to stay here for a few breaths. So the idea behind today's practice is not that you have to set aside an hour or even a half an hour for a yoga practice. Sometimes these short little classes that are really, they're very efficient poses, they're very effective poses. You can get away with having a shorter practice. So if you have a really busy schedule, but you I just need to do something, I gotta work out some of the hip tension or whatever it might be, this is a great class for that. We're gonna be really concentrating on the hips in this particular class. Go ahead and bring yourself back up. And then from here, we're now gonna go into, actually we'll go into the other side first before we go into the Pigeon variations. So go ahead and just switch it so now that your left shin is in front and now your right leg is back. Let's come to that 90-degree seat here. Again, you might be tilted off to the left a little bit, that's okay. And again, the legs don't have to be exactly 90. You might have them closer, you might have them further apart. Just find what works best for you. Sit up nice and tall and get a nice inhale here. And then exhale and fold forward any amount. So find to your degree what works best for you today. I find that some days I'm a lot tighter and I can't come out as far. And other days I'm like, oh, all right, I'm, for whatever reason, more flexible. So you have to practice with the body you have today. But these practices are nice to introduce. If you've never done yoga, this is a great way to introduce you to the practice. by concentrating on one pose and a couple of variations. You're not having to do a lot of different things and a lot of different shapes, and you're still getting a very effective and efficient practice. And if you're not new to yoga, this is just great to add into your day. And go ahead and bring yourself back up. So now we're gonna go back to that right side again. So we're gonna come into pigeon with our right leg forward. Now, if pigeon does not work for you, the variation that you're gonna work is you're gonna come back into that deer pose, and you're gonna do all the variations we're gonna do in pigeon, but you're gonna do it from a deer pose stance. And again, if you need to bring, maybe you need to bring this right foot closer into your left thigh, so you can see that. If you need to have those connected, you can do that too. So you can modify this pigeon however you need to. So if this works better for you, you'll still be able to do what we're gonna do. You're just gonna be in a modified position. So you decide if that's best for you. If pigeon works for you, pigeon is gonna take your right leg forward. Your right leg will not be at a 90-degree angle though, the only difference here. It'll be more angled in. And then that left leg is gonna go behind you. So I have right knee pointed toward the right corner of my mat, top of my mat, and this right foot is pointed more toward the left hip. If you bring it into a 90-degree angle, it's going to be a much more intense stretch. And if you've got that flexibility, then go for it. You can also up the ante here if you need to. So we're going to first start with the more upright version of pigeon. So whether you are in pigeon itself or in the deer pose, we're going to stay more upright here. So we're not going to fold forward right now. We're going to stay more upright. And you may also find that you're more up, even like your right hip area is also up off of the mat. You could put, if you have a block or a cushion or something, you could put that underneath your seat if you need to. If you're in deer pose, it's going to look very similar. You're just going to be 90 degrees and sitting up more upright. So we're going to hold this pose for just a few moments. It's our first variation of pigeon. I happen to love pigeon, so I'm going to come into it. It's just one of those poses that just feels really good for me. Anytime I got really tight hips and all that, oh, it feels so good for me. So I really like this one. So we're going to breathe here for a few rounds of breath, staying in the pose, noticing how we feel. If you have any pain in your knees, then come out of this pose and do that 90-degree sit or a variation of that. Again, you could have your feet closer in and still be doing. So there's a lot of variations here for pigeon. Don't have to come into the one way and think, oh, if I don't do it this way, then I'm not doing it. You know, there's a lot of variations and they all have benefits. And then next we're going to do twisted pigeon. So we're going to bring the left forearm down, and we're going to twist to the right here. So you can use that right hand as a little kickstand to prop you up, but you're going to twist yourself over to the right. Now, if coming that far down is bothersome, you can always keep yourself propped up on your left hand and then just twist yourself over so you'll be more upright. If you are in deer pose, yours will look somewhat similar. You may or may not be able to get the forearm all the way down, and that's okay. You could just bring your left hand to the mat and just twist yourself to the right. So whatever variation you're in, go ahead and stay in that one for just a few moments. And we're getting a nice twist here. And as you can see, we're just going to work on the one side at a time, and then we'll go to the other side. So if you're wondering, we're going to come to the other side. But this is a nice way to just twist your body a little bit, open yourself up, and you're getting into the hip area a little differently now. Another breath there. And then our last variation of pigeon on this side is going to simply be folding forward. And then this could be up on your elbows. If it's really hard for you to come this far down, you could stay up on your hands. But you're coming forward instead of being all the way upright like we were at the beginning. You're coming forward more. It could be down on your forearms, or you could come all the way down and use your hands as a pillow for your forehead. This one's going to be a little even deeper, and this one's going to be more introspective, more grounding pose. If you are in deer pose or any variation of deer pose, yours might look a little different. Same idea though, you're going to fold over that front leg. You're going to come down any amount. Coming all the way down may be a little more difficult if you're in deer pose. So see where you are. Like for me, coming all the way down in this pose is much harder. So find where you are. See what feels good with your body. And just melt down into this pose. Let yourself come into the pose and just let go here. breathing. Like you said, this is an introspective and also grounding pose. So if you ever find yourself feeling kind of flighty, or you just can't concentrate, or you're maybe a little irritable, this is a nice grounding pose. Just bring you back to earth for a minute. Sometimes we find ourselves, our heads are in the clouds, and we need a little grounding moment. Another inhale. And an exhale. You can sigh that out through your mouth if you like. Then bring yourself all the way back up. Go ahead and stretch both of your legs out in front of you, because we've been working on that right leg. So you'll feel as soon as you stretch your legs out, the blood now is rushing back through into the hip area on the right. So I'm just going to sit here for a minute and kind of let all of that, shake all that out. Do what you need to do. Just move your legs a little bit just to kind of get that feeling back into that leg. So we really worked into that right hip. And now we're going to do the same variations on the left. So again, you decide if you're doing pigeon or if you're going to do some variation of deer pose. Since I did pigeon on the first slide, I'm going to show this to you in deer pose. I'll show you what it looks like in pigeon, but then I want to switch to deer so you can see the difference. So now we're going to bring that left leg forward, and the right leg will come back if we're coming into pigeon. And we're going to start out upright. So left knee is toward the left top corner, left foot is towards your right hip. And you can come up any amount here. So again, you might be more upright, or your seat might be further down. Depends on how well this pose works for your body. So there's upright pigeon. If you are in deer pose or some variation of deer pose, it's going to look much like how we started. So you're going to stay upright, trying to keep yourself as level as you can. Obviously, this right hip is going to be it's going to be a bit further off of the ground than your left, and that's okay. So we're going to stay here for a couple of rounds of breath. Breathing in and out through your nose, just noticing how you feel. And you can always try both. You can try pigeon and you can try this one, see if you like which one you like better, if pigeon works for you. But you could also just see what the difference are. You are going to feel the stretch slightly differently between the two, but you're still going to get the benefits of that stretch. And then we're going to exhale, and we're going to come into that twist. So I'm going to bring my right forearm down, and then I'm going to turn my body to the left. So I've got my left hand out here as a kickstand, as a prop. So here's what it looks like in deer pose. If you're in pigeon, still got that leg straight back behind you. You might get a little deeper twist. It really depends on your body and the anatomy of your body. We all have similar anatomies, but we also have some differences too. So find your degree of twist there. You can always be more upright. And we're going to twist to the left here and stay in this for a few breaths and see how that feels different in your hip. What do you notice? And then another inhale and exhale. And then inhale and bring yourself back up. And finally, we'll do the forward fold here in pigeon or deer, whichever one you're doing. So go ahead and come more upright, and then bring yourself down any amount into your introspective, your grounding pigeon or deer. So if you're in pigeon, it's more like this because your right leg is back behind you at a straight line. If you're in deer pose, it's a different setup, but you're still getting a nice stretch. So breathe here for a few rounds. Really allow yourself to get grounded in this pose. Just come and arrive here on the mat in this pose. Allow yourself to sink in. Give yourself the gift of just another minute. Remember to breathe. Let's take another inhale through the nose, a nice deep inhale. And then sigh it out and let it go. Bring yourself back up, come back to a seat. Thank you so much for joining me for this short but efficient practice. I hope that you enjoyed these variations on Pigeon. Great way to help open the hips up in a short amount of time. Thank you again for joining me, and until next time.